In the unlikely event that you get error code F11, that's telling us that the control doesn't recognize there's water in the tank. So through the commissioning process, the T2 sensor is monitoring tank temperature. Okay, tank temperature, and then you have water on the back side of that. During the commissioning process, and the heat pump system is running, the control monitors how quickly that tank is heating up. Without water in the tank, it's going to go much faster, meaning you heat air quicker, easier than you do water. So with that F11 code, we've got a couple of things we've got to do. One, verify water. Do that, your best practice. Personally, I'm going to open up the drain valve, making sure it's going to be caught into a bucket or something like that. Make sure you got water at the drain valve. You could also go to the T&P valve. There's a lot of mystery, should you trip that or not. But again, that's another way to verify you have water in the tank. Lastly, you could probably go to a faucet. Open up the hot water faucet. Again, the water may not be warm, but you should get a steady stream of water out of that hot tap. So if we verify or validate we've got water in the tank, we've got to test our components. We've got three different things. You've got a T2 sensor, which is mounted directly onto the tank. You've got a wire harness, so that white wire harness goes up to your control. And lastly, you got a control board. Okay, so we can jump into the service mode. After you validate that you've got water in the tank, let's jump into service mode so we can see what is the T2 sensor reading. Okay, so T2, it's toggling back and forth. It says 109 degrees. Okay, we know that's a believable reading, but again, your test process, T2 sensor, that's the tank wall temperature. Control says it's 102 or 109 degrees in this example. So now to test the T2, we're going to actually remove the white wires. So for this, I'm going to power the control off. I'm going to go behind the water heater, turn it off. Okay, so power is off. And this is a resistance-based circuit. There's no electricity involved here, but we do want to isolate the component. So I'm going to take the white wires loose. And what that's exposed is my T2 sensor. I'll use my multimeter. I'm going to adjust that to a resistance setting. So from my off to my omega sign. Okay. And we're going to measure resistance of the T2 sensor. So going from one terminal to the other terminal, I should get a resistance value. Okay. Here I've got somewhere, it looks like it's climbing a little bit, right? So I'm going to be right around 5K, right? That 5K resistance, or 5,000 ohms, will correlate to a temperature. That's what the board is doing, is it's calculating a temperature. So the sensor says we're 5K. We go to our temperature chart and verify that. If that's a realistic and believable number, we need to measure continuity of our white wires. So for video purpose, I've actually removed the control to show you the T2 sensor plugs into the board. It's like a burgundy connector. You unplug that T2 sensor wire. We're going to measure continuity from one wire to the appropriate end or connection going onto the board. So you measure continuity of both wires. So if your T2 sensor is good, if your wires have continuity from the sensor to the control, the last part that we're unable to really test would be your control board. And I'd just like to preface this whole video with very unlikely service call. Let's make sure you have water in the tank, but if you get stuck, give us a call. We'll be glad to help.